I've got one flame to burn, one race that I can say I ran.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 21047.com podcast. My name is Keith Cartwright. I am the host of this show. I'm really glad to have you along listening in today, wherever it is that you're listening and whenever it is that you might be listening in. So today's episode is sponsored by my friend Lachelle Head. Lachelle is a running buddy. Have had the pleasure of running many, many races beside Lachelle. She has been a longtime supporter of 21047.com and this podcast and all that we're trying to do with this mission. And so I'm really grateful. She's been around supporting me financially for a long time. So thank you, my friend. Lachelle supports me through Patreon. Patreon is a platform where you can back folks who are doing things like this, just trying to use their creative side to make some sort of impact on the world, whether it be through writing, podcasting, videos, what have you. And so I do a little bit of all of that. And so if you are interested in supporting me financially through Patreon, like Lachelle and several others, you can go to my website, 21047.com, and just click on the Support Me tab, and it will take you to some more information about Patreon, where you can make a monthly pledge, and then in return, I will do some things for you, including recognizing you as sponsors to different pieces of this mission. So really appreciate all those Patreon sponsors, and especially this week, my friend Lachelle. So this episode this week, I am interviewing my friend Kristie Allen, who's another Patreon supporter. And Kristie and I, we go way back, and as it relates to this show, we go way back to the Run the Bluegrass in 2017. I remember Kristie, I was interviewing Kristie in the back room. She was volunteering for the race. And so we found a quiet little corner to do one of my very first ever podcast interviews. So it was really cool, and it was Run the Bluegrass weekend last year where I officially launched 21047.com. So coming up on a 1-year anniversary, not sure exactly what the exact date is, but I know it's in conjunction with that Run the Bluegrass weekend. So very, very cool time coming up, because next weekend, Easter weekend, is indeed the 2018 version of Run the Bluegrass. And anybody who's followed my running journey knows that I have a love-hate relationship with Run the Bluegrass. Probably a little, the scale tilts a little heavier towards the hate side. The first time I did that race back in 2015, the spring of 2015, at that time, and I'm not so sure it still is, and it was really one of the hardest physical things that I have ever attempted and completed. It was the hilliest course I had ever run. I had never trained on hills. And the reality is I was doing very little training on anything. I just didn't run that much. I'd been in a couple of races. And so going to Lexington and tackle this thing, it blindsided me. I had no idea really what I was getting into. And by the time I was in the middle of that race and realized exactly what I was into, it was clearly too late to back out. And, I was going to finish it, and I did in about 3 hours and 1 minute. And it was 3 hours and 1 minute of constant struggle. But I've got a classic finish line photo there where 3 of my buddies, Scott and Mo and Tracy, run me across that finish line. I have this look of absolute pain on my face, and it's as real a pain as you can ever see in a picture. So anyhow, last year I went back, took a break in 2016. Last year I went back and had been running quite a bit more, and just had a goal of breaking 2 hours and 50 minutes, which would obviously be significant improvement over that 3 hours and a minute. And so last year I did. I ran it in 2 hours and 48 minutes, somewhere around there. So I was pretty pleased with that. And so now we fast forward, we're going to Run the Bluegrass next weekend, 2018, and I have much, much bigger goals in mind for that. Here in the month of March, I have really hit some running highs. I ran, obviously, the Little Rock Marathon back at the beginning of this month and ran my fastest marathon ever. Last weekend, I ran my fastest 5K ever. And then in just a routine training run the middle of this week, I went out and ran 6 miles. And to my surprise, it wasn't what I had planned to do, but about 5 miles into that, I realized it was possible. So I went after it and ran my fastest 6K ever. And so now I'm going into my next half marathon next weekend. It will be the last day in March, with the reality that I have the possibility of running my fastest marathon, 5K, 10K, and half marathon all in the same month. Now, my fastest half marathon was at the Cincinnati Flying Pig last year, back in May of 2017. 2 hours and 27 minutes or something. So it's not lost on me that would be quite about a 21-minute PR from at Run the Bluegrass specific to get under that 2:48 from last year. And so it's not it's not an easy chore by any stretch, but it is in the back of my mind. The first goal is I just want to go out and really do a lot better than last year. And I really never would have had this PR in my thoughts if I hadn't had just such a great month and just feel good. I've been eating right, lost weight, running a lot. And so we'll see what happens. But, I'd be lying if I, didn't say that it was there in the back of my mind. Now, also next weekend, going to Run the Bluegrass. I have a special cause that's been put on my heart. Last summer, I was part of the Facebook Summit up in Chicago. So it was me and Pam and Tracy Outlaw. We went up and represented the Megs Miles Facebook group at the Facebook Summit. It was a community summit Facebook pulled together to just promote and highlight the work that their Facebook groups and pages were doing online. And this was just their effort to try to bring together some of the best practices of these groups in an effort to really try to figure out a way to bring the world together and how Facebook may play into that. So that was kind of what that was all about. But while I was up there, I had the chance to meet Laura Baumgardner, and she was a friend of Tracy Outlaw's, and Tracy had been involved with this particular effort of hers over the years, the 5K Run for Respect. And so Laura works with some special needs students in Pontiac, Illinois. It's Pontiac Township High School. And so these students are on a mission. They're trying to spread the word to end the word. And the word they're trying to end is retarded. And the word they want to replace it with is respect. And so when we were in Chicago last year, Laura made a couple-hour drive from her high school with 3 of her students over to Chicago to meet Tracy and myself and Dawn and Pam and Dawn's family. It was just a group of us that were meeting at a Starbucks there in Chicago. And so Laura and her students came and they met us. And it was such an enjoyable time hanging out with them, getting to know these young people. It was really saddened me really to think how hard they have to work, how important it is for them to be respected. But then on the flip side, how hard they were working to make sure that everybody's respected. And the reality was their cause wasn't about them at all. They were saddened that anybody, not just them, but anybody has to fight for respect based on being different alone. And so I am going to Run the Bluegrass next weekend, encouraging folks to register virtually for this race that they put on in April. It's April 21st. And, when you sign up for this race, it's $20 to run it virtually. And, you can run it, walk it, or just sign up and do neither. Because I think they get encouragement just by the number of people who sign up and just in a real tangible way show they are supporting this effort that they have to get people to respect one another. This year's theme is Respect is Golden. And it's, plays on it's the golden anniversary of the Special Olympics. So the 50-year anniversary golden But then the other theme they've incorporated into that is the golden rule, and they want everybody to treat each other like you want to be treated. And I think it's a very appropriate theme for them to take on. I think it's a cause that would serve us all well to support and live out. So next weekend, me and my friends at Run the Bluegrass are really going to take on this effort to try to encourage folks to sign up virtually for this Run the Respect 5K on April 21st. I'll put a link on this podcast episode where you can go and register if you're interested in doing that, and just really support these kids and Laura in all that they are trying to do. So big weekend next weekend at Run the Bluegrass. Really pretty excited to see how all of it plays out, both in my own personal running goals and in this effort to try to spread some love through Laura and her students, and really just honor something that God has put on my heart. He just continues to open doors with these races and this running journey. He's just constantly reminding me that this running journey is about far more than me. It's about far more than running, and it's about this magic that God can only weave through these stories that get weaved together along this running journey. So I'm going to, I keep saying that this is all about run into dark with light. And I think Laura and her students have identified this darkness in the world that comes at the hands of people really not respecting one another, for people who hold our differences against each other instead of recognizing that, hey, we're all kind of different. So why don't we just accept that piece and work on loving one another in spite of, or, let's be really bold because of this reality that we're all different. So I look forward to seeing what God unfolds next weekend at Run the Bluegrass. So to get me and you and everybody kind of fired up for that, one of my dearest Run the Bluegrass friends, Kristie Allen, has run this race many times. She is a pacer. She was a pacer last year. She was actually pacing the 2:45 group last year. And I remember for about 7 or 8 miles, because like I said, in the back of my mind, I just wanted to beat 2:50. And so I thought, well, if I hang with her at 2:45, I'll accomplish that. And for about 7 or 8 miles, that's exactly what I did. I hung with them, but then the hills bit me and they went on by. And I remember Kristie yelling, come on, you can do it, come on. And I thought to myself, no, I can't. And they went on. But I really fought to I figured if I could at least keep them in sight, then my 250 could happen. And so I did. Like I said, it ended up being 248, almost 249, I think. But she really did help pace me, so I appreciate that. She's pacing again this year, 2018. She'll be pacing that 245 group again. So my goal clearly is to stay way out in front of her this time. But we had a fun conversation about that pacing. I've always wondered about these pacers out on the course and kind of what their strategy is. How do they do that? What are they thinking, knowing that they have, some of these folks with personal goals in mind? They have this relationship, sort of this responsibility. How do they handle that? So we talk about that and a whole lot more. I love Kristie. She's just this beautiful spirit. And so I am going to turn this conversation over to me and my dear friend, Kristie Allen. I want to welcome Kristie Allen back to the 21047.com podcast.
Very good to be here.
Oh, it's good to have you.
I'm so glad.
First thing I want to do is thank you, because by the time this airs, it will have been 1 year since I started this whole thing, and you were one of the first people, to interview, and then you've been very generous supporting this, which has meant a lot to me both. Obviously, the financial help is huge in giving me more time to do this, but just personally, because of who you are and supporting this has just meant a lot to me, and it just gives me the courage and the boldness to act on what I really feel like God is asking me to do. So first thing I want to do is just thank you for that.
You're very welcome. I'm glad that I can feel like I'm a little part of what you're doing. I can sit back here and watch you go, and I'm glad to be able to be behind you.
Well, there are not many better people to have behind you than you. So last year when I interviewed you, we were tucked back in a corner in the volunteer section at Run the Bluegrass. We're going to reunite there here next weekend. Really excited about that. I was going to ask you, because I think, how many times have you done Run the Bluegrass?
This will be my 5th one. Number 5.
And what keeps you coming back to Run the Bluegrass?
Well, it is the first half marathon race that I ever ran, right? And it's local, so it's easy to get to. It doesn't cost me any hotel fare or anything to get there to it. And it is a pretty spectacular course. It's beautiful country. I like the challenge in it. You know, it's a rewarding course. That's what I call it. It's rewarding.
Yes.
And it's funny because if I go somewhere else and run a hilly course, other places, there's other places around Kentucky that I go and run, and they seem very difficult to me. But Run the Bluegrass, for some reason, it doesn't seem that bad to me. It seems really doable. I don't know if it's because, you know, every uphill has a down, you know, for every effort, you know, you get to coast down. It sort of evens itself out. I don't know why it doesn't seem so terrible, but it's not threatening to me in any way. It's become maybe an old friend in some sort of way. You know, I don't know.
I kind of share that. I mean, this will be the first race that I have done 3 times. And that blows my mind because the first time I did it, I said, not only did I say I'll never do that race again, I said I'll never run any race again. But then I went back last year after 2 years, and it's really become just a great test for me to kind of see where I am, because it is challenging, all the hills. So I really look forward to next weekend more as kind of a test, just to really see where I am.
And I just think they do a really good job of putting it on. I think the race is really put together well. And I feel like when I ran it the first time, and I didn't really know anybody that worked at it or volunteered it, you know, I was just a runner and I hadn't seen the behind the scenes at all. But I felt like it made me feel like the race was kind of all put together for me. It felt like my race. Yeah. Like all of these things were just for my benefit. And that's a feeling that I don't always get at other races, you know. And of course, Run the Bluegrass has the benefit of having, they've done it a few times. They've done this a couple of times. So now, you know, they know how to kind of do it in a seamless sort of way. And, so I like the fact that it's really polished now and it runs well and everything goes off most of the time as it's expected to do. So I like it a lot.
Yeah, no, and for a race that has, I mean, I don't know how many folks they get there. It seems to me 4,000 or 5,000.
I think it's like 7,000, I think, is about. Which
is a good size race, but like you said, it really has this small race feel to it, both in, I think it is just the organization of it. Eric and Rachel and them just do a great job all year, making sure this thing is ready. And then when folks get there, it is a fine-tuned machine. So you are pacing this year. You paced last year. You're pacing, I believe, the 2:45 pace group. I am curious about that. I was thinking about this the other day because Harvey was pacing a marathon out in Los Angeles, and I got to thinking about this. And I said, oh, well, great. I'm going to have Kristie. I can ask her about this. What kind of planning goes in, and especially for Run the Bluegrass, when you have all the hills, and I would think that would really impact your pace. And what kind of homework do you do ahead of time to make sure you stick to that 2:45 pace?
Right. Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, the training run. So we go over there umpteen times, you know, before the race to run the course and know it. I think that's for me, that's really key for pacing a race, is knowing the course.
Right.
And Harvey's so accomplished, I guess it doesn't matter. He doesn't need to know the course, right? He just go out there. He can maintain probably an even pace across any terrain. I'm a little bit different. You know, I've got to, and every pacer has a different, way that they attack the race, and that's okay. And part of what you want to do is let the crowd that's going to run with you know how you're going to run. Are you going to run an even pace, or are you going to try to run an even effort?
Right.
That's my game. Let's run an even effort.
Right.
So we're going to go slower up that hill, and then we're going to come down a little faster, right? So there is this fabulous website, which is findmymarathon.com.
I'm writing it down.
Write that down, findmymarathon.com, and you can get a pace band. And there are a lot of races that you can pick. The race, Run the Bluegrass, is out there. The Flying Pig that we're going to go to, it's out there. And they can tell you per mile, based on the elevation of that course, what you want to run for each mile to meet your goal. So that's invaluable in a race like Run the Bluegrass. So on my wrist, I have a list of every mile with all the hills, what I should be running at the end of that mile. And then rather than pick 2:45, I pick 2:43. That gives you a little bit of a window, you know. So my goal as a pacer, of course, to encourage those people who have that goal, that time is set for their goal. Maybe it's their PR, you know, maybe it's going to be the fastest they've ever run, you know, and as a pacer, you're not running for your own goal. It's for these people. You're wanting to get them to accomplish their goal. But as a pacer, I don't want to have to really be working hard that last mile. I want to know that I'm going to get there and it's going to be an easy trip. I don't want to really have to work real hard. So I try to stay ahead. And every now and then I'll run up on somebody with a little stick. You know, that's the other thing. If you're running along, here comes that pacer with that stick, and you look up at that sign, and you're like, how far behind am I?
Right.
When that pacer comes by.
Right.
And they'll see the 2:45, and they'll be like, are you on pace? And most of the time I'm like, no, I'm a little bit ahead, so you're okay.
Yeah.
So I like to stay a little bit ahead of the game if I can.
Yeah, I had a little bit of an unspoken goal. Well, last year, all I wanted to do was beat 250, but I knew you were pacing that group just in front of that 250, so I hung with you guys a little bit. I was out in front of you, I don't know, through about miles 7, 8, or 9, and then you guys went by me, and there is something about seeing that sign go. But I knew I just had to kind of keep, from that point on, is just let me keep them in sight, and that will help me beat that 250.
And it's a whole different feeling when you're just running for yourself and you have your own goal.
Right.
It's a whole different feeling when you're not running for yourself, but other people are depending on you.
Yeah. So
you're not running for yourself, and you're like, if you are just running for yourself and you don't make it, you just let yourself down, or you don't get your goal, that's okay. But as a pacer, you're all these people are depending on you to meet their goal. So it's a little bit, I sweat it out a little bit. You know, it's not an easy thing. I worry about it, you know, and I try to make sure that I'm prepared to get there in the allotted time.
Is that why you do it? I mean, you could go out and run your own race, but is that why you take that on, knowing there's that pressure and knowing that there's people counting on you?
Well, it was funny because the very first time that the pace leader asked me to be a part of it, I had run that race 2 times. I think I had run it twice. And I knew that Harvey was a pacer for the Cliff Bar team. Yeah. And when somebody asked me, I was like, I am nobody. I am not an accomplished runner at all, you know, when compared to those folks. Why would I be a pacer? And she was like, well, because the other part of it is not just running, but it's encouraging people. Yeah. It's just being fun, being encouraging, you know, keeping people going along. And I think that's why she thought maybe I would be okay doing that. So that's how I got started in it. And that's the reward of it. That's the fun part, is being able to encourage people, make some friends, see other people achieve their goal.
But, you know, that is a great point, because I was just sitting there thinking about that. And I love Harvey. You know, he's, like you've said, they don't get much more accomplished than Harvey. Yeah. But I think if I was having Harvey pace me, I'd be a nervous wreck. I think I'd be trying to live up to the expectation of an elite runner. But you just have this beautiful, gentle spirit about you. And I think you would. And you know, 2:45 back there, for me, that's like an elite race. But for most people, you know, that's not considered a fast race. So to have someone like you up there who's real and who's just kind of, can relate to the people that are back there running with them, I think that
I
would
just
be
motivate
comforting.
you. I just hit you with that stick, to motivate you, keep you going.
Well, let me ask you about something. So the last time you and I saw each other, we were at Kiowa Island down in South Carolina. We ran that half marathon down there, that cold South Carolina December weekend. And so we ate a post-race meal that night, and we were sort of having a conversation about eating lifestyles, and I had talked a little bit about how I'd been experimenting with meatless, vegetarian, vegan, all sorts of things. And it wasn't long after that, and I'm not saying that I had the influence on that, but it wasn't long after that I started seeing Kristie Allen, and I just love following you on Facebook because you have my mix in there. You just got a lot of good stuff about your faith, but then you got a lot of good stuff that just makes me laugh. And one of the things that started making me laugh was hashtag veggie train. You started to experiment with this veggie, plant-based, whatever we want to call it, lifestyle. One, are you still in the experiment?
Yes, the experiment continues. Still going.
How's it going?
It's good. I mean, I am enjoying it. I'm enjoying it for several reasons. And it really did start with that conversation at that restaurant in Kiowa Island. When you and Katie were sharing that you really did feel better when you were experimenting with it yourselves back over the summer. And of course, we all knew that Harvey Lewis was, a vegetarian or vegan or whatever you want to call him. He's in a class all by himself, I know. But anyway, he's eaten that way for many, many years. Yeah. And you certainly can't dispute the success he has had fueling himself that way. And so, I don't know, I just happened to, we'd been out of town. And sometimes when you go out of town, you tend to sort of eat kind of junky. Because you treat yourself, right? You're on vacation, so you treat yourself to food that you might not always eat on a regular basis. So on the way home, I was deciding that I needed to clean it up a little bit because I'd eaten some junk, clean it up. And, so that was when instead of getting it, and I thought, maybe I'm going to just consider this. Maybe just give this a try. And we got back into town. And later on that night, we went out to eat because you can't cook when you come in from vacation because you're just tired and there's things to do. And so you just go out to eat again. And I ordered a veggie black bean fajita. And everything hinged on that one meal. If that meal had been bad, the experiment would have ended right there. But as it turns out, the veggie black bean fajitas were fabulous. They were wonderful at this place.
I remember you posted that.
I was excited because there's a whole kind of brand new world of food, and I'm a food lover. So here's a whole brand new world of food that I've really never tried before. So I'm getting to experiment with all these different vegetables and flavor combinations and all this stuff. And I mean, I don't know, years ago at Lambert's, I had a vegetable plate. I knew that you could just eat vegetables, but the idea of really doing it myself was not something that I really ever thought I would ever do. And it's funny too how the biggest things that seem to come across my path and make sweeping changes in my life have always been things I have just accidentally stumbled. I have never gone out, let's see how we're going to change our life today. Let's look up some things.
Right.
These things just arrive out of nowhere. And I go, well, let's try this out.
Right.
So that's still where the veggie train is, still just trying it out. My goal is to stay with it, until later on this summer when I have my annual kind of physical, some blood work. I really want to see what happens to my cholesterol, end of this, if it really has made any kind of an impact at all, health-wise. That's my goal. And I want to be real careful. And somebody else on your podcast talked about labels. And if I say I'm vegan.
Right.
Well, I instantly have this picture of this person that comes up in my the stereotype of that. And so I really hate labeling myself or even calling it anything other than this veggie train experiment.
Right.
That's all I want to say. And I also, I did this when I started running. I started running and people were like, well, wonder how long that's going to last. Wonder how long she's going to keep on running. And so again, I never set myself up, and maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe people say, well, you need to commit yourself to it. But I never wanted to come out and say, I'm a runner.
Right.
I'm going to be running for the rest of my life.
Right.
You know, this is me. I didn't ever do that.
Right.
I just thought that as long as I enjoy it and it's beneficial to me and it's making a positive thing and I find a purpose in it, I'm going to do it. And when those things when it runs out, I'll do something else.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the same way with this. I don't want to come out and like proclaim anything. I'm just going to say, I'm going to do this for a while, see what happens with it. As long as it's good and there's some benefit, we'll keep on doing it.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens tomorrow. So that's kind of where I am on that.
Well, I think I don't know. You know, I've been at it now. I've been pretty faithful to it since Kiowa. I mean, my weight's lower than it's been in 20 years. I feel great. The running, you know, kind of, and that's where it started with me. I didn't, like you, I didn't set out to make this life change, but number one, doing these podcasts, and I wasn't looking to interview vegans, vegetarians, but I interviewed so many of these runners who were vegetarians, and they'd all talk about how great they felt. You know, I read the Rich Rule book, and that got me thinking about it. And running wise, I've felt great. I've been sleeping better. I mean, there's just been so many benefits to it. So, but you said something, or you posted at one point that you picked up on. I interviewed Jenny Baker, and she's pretty much plant-based. But she's the one that said, we're not going to be held bondage to anything. You know, it's just like,
exactly.
And we were in Little Rock for the marathon a couple weekends ago, and it was funny because we went out for this lunch. And so Tracy Outlaw, he knows I've been on this bit of a journey, and he said, well, what are you going to eat in here? I said, I'm getting that chorizo or whatever that is, that corned beef potatoes. And he said, what about the whole? I said, I ain't a vegan today. You know, so that's kind of been my thing. If I'm not going to be in situations like where I'm with a bunch of friends and it's a celebration. If the fun thing to do in that moment is to eat some meat, I'm going to do it. But I would say,
if you think I'm going to live the whole rest of my life and never eat another slice of bacon, you are sadly mistaken. Right? There is going to come a time when I'm going to eat some bacon.
Right.
One of my favorite foods in all the world is a family recipe for chicken curry. I have it every year on my birthday. It's like the holiday dish that we cook. Do you think I'm going to never eat that again? No, I'm going to eat that, you know, because again, also, you know, there are a lot of people, and I think one of the, I can't remember now, I've listened to so many things, but somebody talked about, you have a lot of people that eat this way because of some ideology that they have. Yeah. And then there's those of us, I'm not eating this way because there's nothing spiritual attached to this in any way. So, it's all just because of what I believe to be the health benefits from it. And I think there are parts of it that are undisputable. You cannot debate the health benefits from this. And it all makes sense when you start to look at the big picture of it and back up and you're like, this is right. But something that I did read, and I did think this made sense, was the idea that eating 100% vegan hasn't necessarily been studied for very, very long, so that they have really long range research and statistics about the effects of it. And that the cultures around the world who primarily eat whole food, plant-based, those folks still oftentimes have some animal product in their diet on occasion. You know, they catch a fish or they kill a deer or whatever. It's not the main staple on the plate. It's an occasional. And so I'm kind of like thinking that's the way that I'm sort of approaching this is like 90% kind of whole food, plant-based with an occasional, you know, little pat of butter on my sweet potato every now and then. Not the ice cream scoop size butter that you get at the restaurant, but just a little something here and there is kind of where I've been trying to go with that. It seems to be fitting for me.
I don't know about you, Kristie, but I really, people ask me about it, and other than, I crave one thing. I'm a big bowl of ice cream before I go to bed, every night guy, vanilla ice cream, chocolate syrup, Spanish peanuts. I mean, for years, every night. Other than that, because I've given that up, other than that, there's really been nothing I've missed. And if you'd have told me that I was going to quit eating cheeseburgers and I would sit here within any time of my life and say I didn't miss them, the only thing that I tell folks, the one thing I miss about the way I used to eat was easy eating. Being able to pull through a drive-through, go to the fridge, just grab whatever's there. This is a very planful and thoughtful way of eating. Now, I have found some ways to simplify it. I mean, I eat a bowl of oatmeal every morning for breakfast. No sugar, no nothing. It's just oatmeal. I've gone to lunchtime. Most days, it's just some pretty plain boiled or baked potatoes. And so breakfast and lunch for me is pretty blah. But dinner time is where I try to mix it up. I don't know about you, if you've missed foods or...
No, and I agree with you, and it has been surprising, is I really have not missed eating any of the meat at all, because I've had so much fun, investigating all these other food choices, I have 20 different cookbooks now, and I'm just all into all these different, of the whole food plant-based things. Yeah. So I'm having a blast putting all these other different combinations together, and I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything at all. So no, I don't miss that. Now, I work from home, which means that it's a lot easier for me at lunch to go up and put together, a TTLA sandwich or whatever myself. Yeah. It is harder when you're out and you're on the run and you're trying to go through and get a meal on the go. If you can sit down, you have time to go to, then I have found that a lot of restaurants do have a lot of veggie options that I never would have looked for before. But I'm like, well, look at here. A lot of them have this stuff. I went into Five Guys Burgers the other day. Oh, there's a veggie sandwich on their menu. So a lot of places do have those kinds of options, and you've just not looked for them before, so you don't know that they're there. Yeah. But I can see how that would be difficult. And my children are all grown. Yeah. So I'm not trying to feed young people with this diet. I can also see how that is a challenge for a lot of families who are trying to, feed this to a family. So there are some tricks and things that you've got to learn for that. Yeah. But I've been lucky. I don't have to learn those tricks. So.
No, trust me, there have been many nights where I've said, I think it would be easy for me if I lived with Kristie. You've made it an adventure. Yeah. You're cranking up some meals. I think I need to be there.
It really, for me, it hasn't been hard at all. It's easy for me to just, I go once a week. I figured this out. Obviously, if you're buying fresh produce, you can't go to Kroger and get a month's worth at one time, because you can't eat it before it goes bad. So you go to your grocery, once a week, get your stuff for the week. Yeah. And then, it doesn't take me long. It's 10 minutes of chop, 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 throw that over here in the skillet, stir this around, and it's ready to go. It doesn't take a lot of work for me.
Now I do have
and then I just throw that steak over there for Dan.
I was gonna say that's where I was going next, because I had to ask. I've been curious. So if for folks who are listening don't know, Kristie's husband Dan, I've spent enough time around Dan to know Dan is a man's man. He is a fireman. He's just a good fella. And he comes across as a meat-eating fella. So did you even go there? Did you even try to even suggest, Dan, maybe you give us a shot? Or did he just let you know right away, don't even go there, Kristie?
Well, two things. I mean, he let me know right away. But the other thing is, Dan is a type 1 diabetic. And so he eats no carb because of that. And I am not going to debate him on whether or not he can eat these other things or whatever. I haven't attempted and wouldn't attempt to do that. But what I have attempted to do is just encourage him to increase, like the leafy greens and those sorts of things that he can eat. So I haven't tried to take away his meat. I just tried to get him to add these other things. And so I don't know, we might get there. But right now, he's very set in what he's doing. And some of it he does have to be mindful because of his diabetes. He has to watch those kinds of things. And he's been dealing with that for, I don't know, 7, 8, maybe coming up on 10 years, I guess. Wow. So he's kind of got that down, the way that he likes to manage that. So I'm not really trying to mess with him too much. And I think we've kind of agreed to leave each other alone on the stuff right now. You know, I just keep saying, just wait till my blood work comes back. Let's just wait and see. You know, we're going to find out how this pays off for me.
Well, the beautiful thing with Dan, this isn't the first wild adventure Kristie's been on where he just has to step back and say, here she goes. So you are what you are. I'm sure Dan has learned that long before any of us. So.
Right. He knew what he was getting when he signed up. So he agreed to this.
Good for him. The other day, talking about running. So the other day I shared this story that I ran with my Elliot 5K the other day. It's my fastest 5K ever, which I think is a little bit related to this diet thing. It's just been feeling better and better. But you know, it was just such a joy experiencing that with him. And so I'd shared that, and then you had commented about running with your grandkids. And I've talked to different people lately that are runners and have kids, and because I have boys, I'm just fascinated by just watching as my interest in running picks up, is theirs picking up. And I wonder what you mentioned about running with your grandkids. And I just wonder kind of what's your relationship with them, your hopes with them and running.
They are monsters. We have created little monsters. See, what happened to them, first of all, was their very first race. These are my 2 oldest grandsons. There are more, but they really haven't started running yet. Yeah. So my 2 oldest grandsons, they're 6 months apart. One of them's 5 and one will be 5 this summer. So their first race ever was the Run the Bluegrass kids race, which is really not a good race to use to set expectation. Right. Because it's over the top, right? It's all this stuff. It's the medal, it's the shirt, you know, it's everything, right? Yeah. So they're thinking every race that we run is going to be like this one. Right. Well, that was where I had to decide where I could buy some medals, because I was like, I didn't want to disappoint them. I didn't want them to, you know, they were all like, Nana, are we going to get another medal if we run this race? And I was like, no, you don't get a medal at every race. The 3K, 5K, you're not So anyway, I did, you know, get on the Oriental Trader, and maybe I'm a bad Nana because now I have my own Nana medal that they get, you know, when they run it. But anyway, I don't know where. I think what happened was I think I told them that everyone who finishes is a winner. I think I said that. You're a winner just by running and finishing. But somehow they got it into their head, this idea of being a winner. They needed to be this winner. Right. So they decided that they have to run, and their goal is to win. And so we were talking about another race. It was in the summertime. It was a 3K, and honestly, I wasn't planning on working hard at all, right? I didn't even like wear my whole race gear. You know, I just wore regular shorts, little t-shirt, thought I'd just jog along. No, they took off. I mean, they were like at a 10:30 pace, and that's fast for me. And I'm like, what is happening here? I'm starting to sweat. I'm needing, you know, my headband, and I'm needing a drink of water or something. They're just going on. And I said, but we can take a break. We can slow down. Because one of them was like, I'm tired. I said, we can take a walk break. He said, no, Nana, we've got to win. If we walk, we're not going to win. And the course was a little park, and it was like 3 laps around this park. And so, you know, halfway through, the leader passes us. Well, they see the lead runner go by, and their little legs are just going. And I said, boys, we are not going to catch him. He has grown-up man muscles that you don't have yet. I said, don't even try to catch that guy, because it won't happen. So then what happened, the other thing that happened is a kid came by, a little kid, a couple years older, and they passed that kid. They passed that kid. And as we go by, my oldest grandson turns around and he goes, loser! And he runs past that kid! Well, I was just horrified. That's the monster I had created over here, right? So I told him, I said, now, that's not being a good sport. That's not what running is about. Because the one thing that I love most about running, is how everyone is so encouraging of everyone else, and you get to run that same race that those elite runners are running. You get the same medal at the end that they got. And that's just so beautiful about running to me. So I said, I want you to listen to what the people are saying to you when they pass you. Yeah. Are they looking at you and going, loser, when they go by you? No, these people are coming by and they're going, good job, little guy, keep going, and all this stuff. So they learned that. And when they learned that, and the next race that we all ran together, they did a better job of encouraging people. And at the end of the race, we stayed at the finish line, to encourage everybody else come in. So they're learning that part of it now. Yeah. But they are definitely competitive. They want to win.
I think that just comes with young guys, probably young girls too.
Yes.
I had this conversation the other day. I interviewed Lori Latham. She's this teacher. And so it got put on her heart. She wanted to help this autistic blind boy in her senior anatomy class. She wanted to help him run a 5K. And so she shared this story of how they ran that race together. It was a beautiful story. But one of the other things she talked about when we were interviewing is that her and another teacher actually helped 25 high school seniors train for and run their first half marathon.
Yeah.
And I thought, because I have said often in the last 4 years that finishing these races isn't so much about this feeling I get, which is a great sense of accomplishment when I cross a finish line, but much, much more than that, it's this feeling of, wow, if I can do that, what are the possibilities out there? And, I think God has used that in big ways. You and I are sitting here talking tonight because of sort of this power I felt and this door that opened. But I'm becoming more and more convinced that our young kids should run, they should run these races and cross these finish lines, because the younger they are, when they can start seeing possibilities. I just deal with so many kids that don't seem to have enough hope. So that encourages me to see your little guys running and our young generation running. And, one of these passions kind of been put on my heart lately is how do we get more of these young kids out there running?
Yeah. I think it's important to know that you have the ability to do hard things.
Yeah.
And I gave my marathon medal to my youngest son as a birthday gift last year. And I wrote him a long letter about doing hard things, and that the medal was just a reminder to him that you can do hard things. And I often think about when I was in high school and I was taking calculus, and I don't know if I knew at the time. I think I might have known at the time that I probably wasn't going to use this in a career at all. But what it taught me lifelong is that I can do hard things. I can learn hard things. And running has taught me that I can do hard things. And it is important. And I think you post about that. And to me, that's the biggest thing is you find out that you really can push yourself and do far more than you may have ever expected from yourself. You can do it. And once you realize that, then the possibilities are endless. Yeah.
Yeah. Where are you with running, Kristie? You got any big goals on the horizon, or are you just kind of running these races now?
It's funny because when I started running, right, I said I would do it for as long as it was fun, right? I wasn't going to just make this commitment to be a runner forever. And I thought last year that I had kind of gotten to a place where it wasn't fun anymore. It really felt like a chore, and I didn't want to do it when it was a chore, Yeah. When I first started running, I had a group of friends, and it was as much of a social activity as it was anything else. And the friends that I ran with initially have kind of gone on to different things, and so it kind of lost a little bit of fun for me. But then after Kiowa Island, the whole veggie train, renewed my motivation. Right. That was the other thing that it did for me, is it just sparked everything new. And I realized, whatever it takes to bring something fresh to the scene. It might not be a new race or a new running shoe or a new thing or whatever. It was this veggie thing that made me feel better about myself, good about myself in a different way, and gave me another reason to test this stuff out. Let's see how your running changes with this. So that kind of renewed that motivation for me. And so I'm careful too to say I'm registered for the full at RVA.
Oh, that's
good. Doesn't mean I'm going to run it, but I'm registered for the full.
No,
I have been registered for the full before. I was registered for the full last time.
No, you're registered.
I'm really going to stay. I'm going to do the training. Look at this. Hold on. Look at this. I really am going to do the training. You see this? This is my whole box of my M&Ms.
Coffee, not M&Ms.
For marathon training.
Tracy.
The whole place of these guys. So I'm going to stick around and run the full.
Yeah, there's a lot of M&Ms there for training. You've got to. You've got to go.
No excuse now.
Got to go the distance. Right.
That many M&Ms.
No, it's funny. I kind of shared. I think I shared it on my 21047 page today, where there's not as many people that I'm confessing this to, but now I'm going to say it to everybody. I think it was Andre Bravo. He had shared this picture the other day of this metal rack, and it said, "I hate running." And I saw it, and I kind of chuckled at it. Well, then Anna Dwinger last night, she obviously saw that. And so in the comment section, she tagged me, and she said, "Keith Cartwright, you need one of these." And, I read that, and it hit me funny. And I wasn't offended, because I've said all along, I hate running. I keep doing it, but I absolutely hate it every minute I'm doing it. And the only reason I do is because I love the finish line. But I got to thinking about that, and it's really been since the whole Little Rock thing. And I think really it has to do with this diet, whatever you want to call it, the veggie train experience. I just feel so much different running. And I said, I think I have to say, I really have started to love running. I love being out there. I love the finish line. I love the starting. I love the whole thing. I went tonight to the gym, 4 miles on the treadmill, had the incline up and down. And it was not once did I, oh my goodness, how many more miles to this is done? I don't know. Maybe it's a phase. Maybe I'm on a second marathon high, which, dear God, just let it continue then. But, it's an amazing thing to kind of get there.
Yeah. And I think that you have to discover new passions.
Right.
In running. When you first start out, everything is new and every race is a PR. And you're, a lot of people, you're trying to reach a new plateau.
Yeah. That's a good point.
If you keep doing it long enough, you're kind of going to reach a plateau on that.
Yeah.
And so then you have to find a new reason, a new goal. You've got to switch it up. And then for me, I guess it's sort of become a little bit more about the community of running and how you can use running in a ministry, in a community outreach to bring light to dark and all those things that you're doing with it. It's not only about the run itself or the finish line.
No, and I think
that
that is a huge part of it. I suppose for me is that, I don't go to Little Rock and get to run down there with Sid Bush and get to meet him. What an incredible man. God just keeps weaving these incredible stories through running. So I think that's the biggest part. I just get excited for the next race because I have no idea what's going to come. So, Kristie, I've appreciated.
I just sit over here and watch you do it.
No. You help, you support, you help a lot. Next weekend, I got to thinking about this today. Next weekend, Easter weekend, Run the Bluegrass. I thought about that. I'll be driving, getting over there Good Friday. And so there'll be something, I don't know. There'll be something different about that running out there Saturday, knowing that, Christ had just sacrificed for us on that cross, and we'll kind of be in that waiting period for Easter Sunday. So I don't know if that'll hit you, but I thought about that today, I don't think there's a better race to be out in the middle of that beautiful, it's just a beautiful creation out there.
Yeah. I think of all the Easter weekend, I like Saturday the best. Yeah. Because I imagine what the disciples and his followers thought on that day. Yeah. It was big activity on Friday, right? And then like quiet on Saturday. Yeah. And did they feel defeated? Did they remember his words at all? Did they really have an inkling of what was coming, And then of course then it came. But I think about that Saturday because I think so many times that's me. I get a little bit off track and you let the things of the world come across your path and you forget the words. You forget his word. You forget. And so Saturday is always the day of Easter weekend that I feel most reflective. Yeah. Thinking about, what that was like in Jerusalem at that time. And, we know the end of the story.
Right. That's what I was going to say. We have the advantage that the disciples didn't have at that time. And we know what's coming. And, I kind of think of it running, and it'll probably cross my mind out there running that, we know what that finish line is. We know what is happening on Sunday. Yeah. We know what that signifies for our ultimate finish line. And so it'll be interesting. It'll be a great race day.
The very first time that I ever ran Run the Bluegrass, the last 3 miles, the music on my phone went dead. And so I was running the last 3 miles without any music. And when I got to mile 12, that was the hardest mile of the whole thing, was the last mile. And the first year I ran it, it was rainy and it was cold and it was windy. It was like just the worst weather ever. And, that last mile, there were a lot of people, that were walking that last mile. But I had it in my head. I had to run the whole thing. So I wanted to keep running it. If you could call that little shuffle step a run, I wanted to keep running. And what I was thinking about in my head was Christ carrying his cross through the street. And I was thinking about how this was difficult for me. Obviously I wasn't carrying a cross, but it was hard for me. But I had people cheering me on. I had people on the side of the road that were cheering for me. And I was thinking about how he didn't have people cheering him on. And there's a song that says he carried my cross. And I just kept thinking that line over in my head. And he carried my cross and he carried my cross. And that got me through that whole last mile of Run the Bluegrass. And every time that I run that stretch of road, I still think about that. He carried my cross. Yeah. And how he used that to push me along that last mile. So I guess there's a little bit of spirituality that I feel when I run that course.
Yeah. No, it's every course for me. That last mile, in Little Rock, it was the last 9 miles. It was just you just get to a point where, you can't do it on your own. And, and we know, and that's where we need to get in all moments in our life, not just running, just get to this point where I'm not strong enough. I'm a very weak individual. And I think that's why running gives us that opportunity to, run to absolute weakness. And then I think that's where we have the opportunity through running to let God shine. I'm grateful for the chance to do that with you. Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on again. Like I said, Kristie was I don't know if you were the very first interview. You were one of the very first, but it was that April weekend last year. It'll be Run the Bluegrass. It'll be one year of doing this. So thank you again. This is so much fun that I get to do it, to have these conversations, that I'll get to go to bed tonight and thinking of all this good stuff we just got to talk about. So I am truly blessed, and you helped me a lot with that. So thank you.
Well, I'm really honored to get to be a part of it. I think one of the best things about all the Meggers that I know is that you guys you don't just think of kind things to do. You guys are kindness in action. You are love in action. You know, I sit around and think, that'd be really nice if somebody would go down there to Houston with Keith. Oh, look, there's 8 people that did. You know, that'd be really good if somebody would send that person a card. That's a great thing. Oh, look, some of y'all did. See, you guys are awesome like that.
Well, it's not a you. It's not just a you. It's a we. You're the same way.
I think of stuff, but I don't really do it. I'm like a poser, you know. But you guys are the real deal. So I'm really glad to at least be able to associate myself with you guys.
Well, I'm going to get you to associate. I got a big sort of effort that I want to do at Run the Bluegrass. I'll be letting you know more about that next week. But we're going to get a chance to help out a really special classroom and a really special group of kids, and it won't take much for us to do it other than just run, and we're going to run for respect. I'll give you a little hint. So yeah, but I'll let you know more about that. Thank you. You have a great night. Go Veggie Train.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Kristie,
Thanks,
I'll see you next week. See you Easter weekend.
All right.
Thanks. Have a good night.
All right.
See ya.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, you can never go wrong with a conversation with Kristie. That was so much fun, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Kristie next weekend in Lexington, Kentucky, and taking on that Run the Bluegrass. So we will definitely see how that goes. I'll be reporting back sometime next week, probably with a race recap on that one, and I'm sure Kristie will be a part of that recap. So I encourage you to check out the link for this particular podcast, and please go out and consider supporting Laura Baumgardner and her students at Pontiac Township High School in their 5K, their Run for Respect. Let's do our part to spread the word, to end the word. Let's do our part to help support them. And they're, just this hope that we could all have a stronger embrace of the golden rule. And so this is your opportunity in some small way just to support their effort and that mission and that vision. I appreciate in advance any consideration you give to that. And so if you want to check out any of the other recent podcast episodes, you can go to my website, twotim47.com, TWOTIM 47.com. There's just also a lot of other stuff there for you to check out, so go do that. And with that, until next time, like I said, I'll be back next weekend after Easter weekend, and give you a recap of the Run the Bluegrass half marathon and whatever might transpire there. You just never ever know when we jump ourselves into these races. It's usually a story unfolds that's far different from anything that we projected going into it, which is what makes this such a cool journey. And I appreciate all of you who listen for being a part of it, all of you who come out and let me run with you. That's the best part of this whole thing, and usually a part of these stories. So next week I'll bring you the Run the Bluegrass recap. Until then, this week, get out there. If you run hard, run strong, give yourself a lot of effort and a lot of credit for being out there doing it. If you're not going to run this week, maybe get out there and cheer somebody on, go to a local race, or just get online and support somebody who is running. And if running's just not your thing, then I'm really happy that you came here and listened in spite of that, because I do think it's a place where even if you're not a runner, I think you can embrace this light that we're trying to run to dark. And you never know. Listen long enough and maybe you'll get out there and take your own first step. You have a great one.